In this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you how to attach two pieces of clay. You're going to need your wood tool, a needle tool, some slip, and of course, your pieces of clay. Now you're going to be completing these steps when you attach the design to the sides of your clay, and also when you were attaching any pieces of clay. Now I know that we used a little bit of clay to fill the holes, but when you are adding larger pieces of clay together, you will always score, slip, score, attach, and blend. You will do this for both pieces. So what I'm going to do in this demonstration is first prep my tile. This tile is going to be like your sides of your cube. This is where my design is going to go. So I want to make sure that it's nice and smooth and even. So I'll use the wood tool, or excuse me, the rib tool to smooth that out. I'll do this to the front and the interior because I want to make sure that all sides are prepped and ready to go. And all I'm doing is applying a little bit of pressure and sliding it across the top of the tile. And as you can see, as I start to push the clay, it starts to fill in any spots. I can then go back and square up my edges using the side of the rib tool. I'll go ahead and smooth back any clay that was pushed up by the rib. And when that's ready to go, I'll flip it over, look for any other imperfections, and at this point I'm going to start planning how I am going to create my design. And for my design, I'm going to do something very, very simple so that you can see just the steps for attaching two pieces of clay. Now I know some of your designs are a little more intricate, and that's okay. Now I'm using a slab to attach to my base, but you can also use this to attach coils, little small circles, any shapes that you'd like to add to your design. You can use these steps to attach them. So just because I'm using a slab in my demonstration doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can create your design. So I'm going to smooth the surface of my tile that I'm going to cut because I don't want to have the design have any imperfections on it. It's very hard to go back and fix your design. You want to make sure that you fix it first and prep it and get it ready to go before you attach it. Now there will be a little bit of areas that you'll have to work on and kind of smooth out, but you want to make sure that it's almost ready to go and complete when you attach it. So I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm very lightly going to draw the lines of my design on my tile. Now as you can see, I'm just applying a little bit of pressure here, not a lot. If I apply too much pressure to my tile, then what's going to happen is I could possibly cut through this. So if you're going to attach a slab piece to your side, then you will end up cutting all the way through. If you are incising designs, which is just lightly drawing a line into the surface of the clay, that's called incising, you're going to want to be very careful when you do this on the side of your tiles. It's very possible for you to cut through your tile with the needle tool, and if that does happen, then you will have to either fill it with clay or possibly complete your project all over again. So I'm going back and I'm just going to kind of fill in the little tiny lines. Those were just guidelines for me. I'm going to use the shape of a cat as my design. I'm going to cut off any excess clay using my needle tool. And I want to cut this away because I want to just use a very little bit of clay that's on the outside. If you have too much clay along the edge when you're trying to cut your design, it can be very hard to get a precise line. So you want to make sure that you cut away any excess and you only have a little bit around your design. So now I'm going to begin cutting my design out of my tile. So I'm going to just start cutting away any excess clay. And as you can see, I cut that away in a straight line. I'm not going to try to cut all the way around my design first and try to get this done in one single cut. I'm going to slowly cut away little pieces using straight lines. Now, because my needle tool is in fact a needle and it's not meant to bend, I'm going to use the straight edge of it to cut my designs. If I try to go all the way around it, I could possibly cut into my design, and then my design will not be precise. So I'm just going along the lines and cutting from the center outward. And I'm going to take my excess clay away, and then I'll go ahead and start to clean up my lines. Just kind of double checking to make sure that there's no areas that were cut in. And as you can see, I kind of went a little bit over my line, so I can just blend that back using my wood tool, and I can smooth out the edges of my design. And as you can see, I just cut out my design from my tile using my needle tool. And it's still at a 1/4 inch thickness. I don't want to cut anything that's too thick, or else it will be too thick to dry, and your tile and design will dry at different times, which could also cause cracking. So now I'm going to place this design on my base. You will be placing your designs onto your tiles. So what I'm doing here is I'm placing it onto the base, and I'm going to measure where it is, because I want to make sure that that's the precise place where I place it when I attach it. So I'm measuring the bottom, making little marks where the tops of the ears are and the top of the head. And now you can see I have my measuring marks. Now what I'm going to do is my first step for attaching clay. I'm going to take my needle tool, and I'm going to just scratch the surface very lightly. Now you've done this step already when you attach the coil to the inside seam of your cube. You're just going to repeat those steps the same way, except this time instead of a coil, you're attaching a slab design to your base. And in this case, your base will be the side of your tile. So I'm just going to continue to lightly scratch the surface of all the areas where my tile or my design will be placed. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the back of my design. I'm going to take my needle tool and lightly scratch the surface. Now I'm going to take my slip, and I'm going to mix this, because sometimes as the clay sits, it settles at the bottom in the water. So I need to mix this to make it combined. And as you can see, it's a little bit thick. I want to make sure that it kind of gets to the consistency of about a milkshake. And I'm going to take any of the excess off, and I'm just going to use the top part, because this is going to act like glue. And I'm just going to use a very little bit. I'm going to apply my slip to my design and also to my base. Now I'm going to take my needle tool, and I'm going to score the surface again, just moving around the slip. So you want to make sure you hang on to your design, or it can get stuck on your needle tool just like mine did. I'm going to do the same thing to the base, where I'm going to attach my design, removing any excess clay from my needle tool. Now it's ready to attach. So I'm going to take my design, I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to place it onto my base. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure. Now if you don't like where your design is placed, you can always move it before you blend it. So as you can see, I'm just going to push my design up a little bit, shape it up, and once it's in the place where I want it to be and it's shaped the way I'd like it, now I'm going to blend this. So I'm going to take my wood tool, and I'm going to use that to blend it. So if I leave my design as it is right now, not blended, what's going to happen is the air, as my clay starts to dry, will start to separate my two pieces of clay, and then my design will pop off the side of my base. so it will not be attached. So you want to make sure that you don't stop right there. You want to continue on to the last step, which is blending. So now I'm going to take my wood tool and I'm just going to press the clay down the side all the way around my design. And I'm just pulling a little bit of clay from my design, pressing it down. Now you want to be very careful when you do this. It's very easy to lose the shape of your design if you press too much. So you want to just very lightly press all the way around your design, just using a little bit of the clay that you have there to attach it and blend it. If you press a little bit hard and there makes like a little indent, you can go back using your wood tool just like I did and just kind of press the edge. And now I'm just moving again all the way around my design, blending the clay. Now I know it's a little bit hard for you to see, but I'm just taking a little bit of clay from the side and just pressing it down. This is a really important step in your scoring and slipping and attaching, because if it's not done or it's only half done, then that's a chance that air could get in there and it could separate your design, and you don't want that. So now you can see that my design is attached. So I'm going to go back around and I'm just going to clean up the edges, because when you first blend it, it's easy to just kind of have a couple of little lines where the wood tool was pressed. So it'll leave a little indent, and you don't want that. You want a nice, clean, smooth edge. So I'm just going to use a different wood tool. This one has a more precise edge with a point, and I'm going to go back along my design and just clean up my edges. So as you can see, I'm just kind of using the side of the wood tool as well to just press along my design and straighten up my edge. Now I can go back with my rib tool and I can straighten up any of the edges where I might have pressed a little bit too hard and created a little bit of an indent. I can just push that clay back into the place where it was. Because you don't want any indents where your design is attached, because that could cause weakness in your tile and it could cause your tile to sag. So now, as you can see, my design piece is attached to my base. As it dries, it's not going to go anywhere. It will stay in the exact same spot that I attached it, and it will be ready to go.